Okay, so we're going to rewind just a little bit. I'm going to start off back where we were talking yesterday. I'm going to kind of fast forward through these slides, but I wanted to recap. So we've got two kinds of electrical power. We've got AC and DC. AC is the kind that is transmitted most efficiently. DC is the kind electrical devices use. And we've got devices that plug into the wall that rectify AC to DC and then transform it to different voltages. Okay? We talked about the fact that alternating current cycles, I should have said this yesterday. I say 115 all the time. Really, US voltage is 110 and 220. But the dang plugs on the back of the switches on the back of the thing say 115 and 230, so I always say that instead. But really our voltage is 110 and 220 here in the US. But the switching power supplies say 115, and so I always end up saying that. But anyways, so we've got a wall outlet that comes in 110 volts. It cycles at 60 cycles per second, but that is not what the electrical components need. So we turn it into direct current that is a level, steady state current for those electrical components, okay? We talked about the difference between volt, amps, and watts, and I gave you a analogy of kind of what that voltage potential means, what amperage current means, and what the total means when we say volts times amps equals watts. That potential times the current that's actually moving through it equals the total power that we get coming out of or being used by an electrical device. In general, a specific device uses a specific amount of amperage. So we talked about an example of a CD-ROM.
Mr. Poole?
Yes.
We're sorry to bother you.
Go ahead. You were interrupting class. What?
So we have, Mr. Fisher said we have a setup up at the Miller's room, and she has trouble, I guess, with her projector and has to call you on it. Is there a trick?
Is it?
It's probably just the input thing again.
Hopefully the audio comes back, because it seems like that's a glitch that 25% of the time if I pause the video keeps working but the audio's gone. So anyways, this was my water analogy we went through, and we talked about calculating something like, I gave a CD-ROM as an example and said it pulls 2 amps. What is the wattage? And because I told you what those plugs have as voltages, the voltage on a Molex plug is 12. So all you do is say 12 times 2 equals 24 watts. Okay, and when I say that, I want you to know that when we say that the amps for a specific device, that's peak amps. Obviously, CD-ROM, when it's not spinning, isn't pulling anything, okay? So, but you have to calculate based on how much it could pull. Man, my stomach is killing me. Not what it's going to pull at rest. Because that power supply has to be able to provide enough power for when things are running. Okay, not for when they're obviously when they're not. So anyways, when I say a device pulls so many amps and ask you for how many watts, realize I'm giving you the amperage for its peak usage when I do that. Okay, but the voltage stays the same because the potential is the same because that's what the voltage of that plug is. Okay, but we don't know what is necessarily going to go through at any time. Okay, we talked about static electricity and we talked about the different voltages that, which were the same thing?
Yeah, but they were playing video this time.
Oh, they were playing video this
So it was both.
I don't know how to fix that.
VLC.
Well, no, I mean, I knew that, but I mean, for the, I almost wonder if I should just, I mean, I know we put VLC player on the thing, but it's not necessarily going to default open as that. Anyways, we talked about the different voltages that you can get and whether you feel it, hear it, or see it, and that's definitely numbers that I'm going to ask you guys to know, because you need to know if you see a spark when you touch something, how many volts did you just discharge into it, okay? We talked about the different control devices that you can use, and then we started talking about power and what's plugged in. And really, we're going to talk more about this as we move forward, but the ground plug is an important thing, okay, and we'll talk about why it's an important thing here. in just a couple minutes. I showed you examples of what those grounding devices look like. And I think right here is about where we finished off with what an actual power supply looks like, and we were starting to talk about the different power supply plugs. Okay, so I think this is exactly where we finished. The main P1 plug comes out at 3.3 volts. Okay, and depending on what all's on your motherboard, the amperage is going to change for the motherboard. It's all 3.3 volts though. Okay, that's how many volts come out, and different motherboards pull different amps depending on what all they have on them. Okay, and just like they also have a motherboard plug that we talked about, could be 4 pins or up to 8 pins. That's a 12 volt plug, but the amperage is undefined. Depends on what kind of CPU is there, how much load it has. Is it a quad core CPU? Is it a single core CPU? It's going to pull different amperages, so even though the potential is the same, you can pull much more total power through all those plugs. Okay. Now, there's really only 2 other main plugs that are used in every single PC. Okay. And that's, first of all, called the Molex plug. And the Molex plug is a 12 volt plug. Just had a power supply. Where did I set it down? No, I had one sitting right here, didn't I? Or did somebody put it away? Did you put it away?
There's 2 of them right there. They're both up there now.
The Molex plug is the traditional power plug that almost every power supply has, and it's what everything used to plug into. Okay, every hard drive, and every CD-ROM, and every extra fan used to plug into a Molex, and those are 12 volt plugs. Okay. The new plug that replaces Molex is the SATA plug. Okay, and this one does have a SATA plug on it. This is a SATA power. It's still 12 volts. And they make adapters to turn this into Molex or Molex into SATA, because they're basically the exact same power. That's why they have exactly the same 4 wires going into them. Okay, it's just the newer hard drives now plug into SATA as opposed to plugging into Molex power. Okay?
Does it run fast when he does that?
No, not at all. It's just a different adapter for the plug. It's easier to plug in for those devices. They just came up with a better plug to do the same thing. So I've got tons of adapters that just change Molex to, these are 99 cents on eBay. So if you have a power supply that only has Molex, which a lot of older ones do that are still working fine, they only have Molex but they don't have the SATA plug, you can buy one of those and it just plugs in. It has nothing to do with speed whatsoever. It's still putting out the exact same power as the old Molex plug. It's just that's the new connection type. So you'll see some of the data connections make a huge difference on the kind of power. The SATA connector for data right there is 6 times faster than the old connector for hard drives. So that makes a huge difference. But as far as the power goes, it makes no difference at all. It's the same power coming out. Okay. There are some other powers that are in there. Really, I have not seen this used forever. I have not seen this one used. I don't even know what that one is. Is that a different?
Is that the Dell one?
I don't know what that. No, this one's the Dell one.
I've seen.
But this one you do see. Okay, this 6-pin PCI Express connector is made to connect into video cards that pull more power. Gamer video cards. A nice gamer video card could have as many of 2 of these power plugs plugged into them. And in order to power one of those, the adapter connects into 2 Molex powers to make one 6-pin plug on there. So if my son's video card requires 2 of these, it means it needs, if it doesn't come with them already on, it means I would have to have 6 Molex connectors to hook up his video card. So instead, you usually end up just buying a new power supply that has more PCI Express connections on it. Okay? So when we buy a power supply, we really need to know what kind of connectors do we need. You know that you're always going to need this one. You know that you're always going to need this one. Okay? and you know we're going to need some combination of these, and you may need that one. Okay? So whenever I buy one, I have to look, okay, what does it have? I know it's got the 24 pin. Does it have the 4 pin or a 4/8 pin connector on it? That way, if it's got a 4/8, I know it's going to work on, as far as the CPU for any motherboard. And when I say 4/8, I think this is one. This actually has an 8 and a 4 on the same thing. Some of them slide off, kind of like this one does. Like this slides off between a 20 and a 24. So this one, I'm only going to use one of these. Okay, so this one either has a 4 or 8. And then this one does have a single PCI Express connector. Okay, so I'm part of the way there, depending on which gamer card I bought. If I got a low-end gamer card, I'm only going to use one. A high-end gamer card, usually going to use 2. And then how many other connectors do I need? I've got, in this case, 5 other Molex and 1 floppy drive connector. Okay, I almost always have 1 floppy. This one has, oh wait, I'm sorry. And then I got two PCI Express ones on this one as well. I'm sorry, 2 SATA ones on that one as well. So I need to kind of inventory my PC when I go to buy one to say, first of all, do I have the connectors I want? Okay, because all of them have different levels of connectors, different numbers of each kind. So I want to make sure I've got the right connectors, and that's only part of the thing. Just because I have all the connectors does not mean it will run my PC. Because if the total wattage on this power supply is below what my computer is going to pull, in this case it's 500 watts, if that's too low, then although I have everything connected up, it's not all going to run. Because if it can't push enough water through the pipe to feed all my villagers, then it's not going to work. Somebody dies. How's that for my analogy? That's a new one this year. Okay. Water through the pipe to feed my villagers, somebody's going to die. Okay. So those are my connectors. And I already had you do this, didn't I? Did you guys read this yet? Okay, I want you to read those 2 things right now. Since Lane's not here anyways, that way I'm not going too far ahead. And I'm going to pause again and hope that I have sound afterwards for Lane, but we'll see whether... Okay, there we go. Continuing on. EMI is one other term that may or may not be new to you that we get with electronic devices. EMI is caused by magnetic field, produces side effect electricity. Basically, anytime we have electricity running through a wire, we have the potential for electromagnetic interference. Okay? We have good cabling that has good shielding on it that reduces it but does not completely eliminate it. Okay? Power supplies are supposed to be completely shielded to prevent it because there's so much going on inside a power supply, which is why it heats up so much and why we don't go inside a power supply to try to fix it. But EMI becomes a factor. You can use an AM radio on a low frequency in order to tell EMI. If you put an old AM radio on and you hold it near something, it causes a lot of static return. And we have a video. Let's see, did I embed the video? No, we did not embed the video. So I'm going to see if I can find the video because I don't remember where I put them. I think put them on trail 2. There. Let's see if I can find them. Because I had them and I moved them this summer. Let's see. I've been in high school class folders and maybe in computers. Nope, not in there. Hardware, there we go. Hardware videos.
So these are book videos?
Yeah, these are the book videos. And of course, I don't have any of them named appropriately, so now I'm guessing. I'm going to just tell you right now that the videos aren't great, so.
They're awesome.
Which is why I don't use the videos very often. I should be getting close. No, how to open a case.
I was thinking it's kind of where you'd be like having to wash them.
See, I should have them all named, so it's. And now I'm going backwards just in case it goes. I think it'd be back here. Where did I stop at?
You were on to 7.
See, these totally out of order because it should have been back there if they were in order with how they came out of that. Well, maybe we won't watch that video. 'Cause there's no way it's up here.
Could you try number 15 again? I forget which one that was.
Now, what number was I? Might as well just try to get through them there. No. Doodly doo.
Be glad he hasn't found it.
Oh, they're gonna enjoy this video. Now I'm committed. Except for watch it, I don't have 6, 7, 8, or 9 down, so I don't know. It could be one of those.
Where would be 6, 7, 8, 9?
Oh, I need to find the disc.
Should be renaming things as you click on.
No, because that takes way too long. It's got to be one of the lower numbers. Now I'm committed to finding the CD. And you know, it's going to be very anticlimactic when I do, just so you know.
At least 9 won't miss too much. The books seem like the hardware mode. That's what all those words are. I swear it was 14.
Every single one of the books came with the CD in it for you to enjoy the video. I got it, I got it, I got it. Get off my computer. This has the names on all of them anyway. And we put the volume on the right thing. It'd be funny if the names were actually on this one. What?
Click the hardware player. Or read the README.
Seems like some computers.
What? Is there another disc in front?
You're on disc 2 of 2.
Ah, there's another disc.
Okay, you're ripping them.
I didn't actually put it in there, so it would make it easy. Oh, I just. She's very entertaining.
Gee, okay.
And when I say that, I'm really not necessarily being
The book is from
honest.
the 90s.
The book's more entertaining than the videos. Okay, let's see. They're just sitting in there. No. Why aren't they just sitting in there?
That's probably why they're numbered.
No, it's 2005. How did I get them off here? I don't even know. It must be hidden or something.
I don't understand how it's 2005. That's crazy.
Please insert CD-ROM and stand by. What?
This one says the.
It's not the right CD-ROM.
Yeah, no, I've switched both CD-ROMs. This is disc 1. I'm going to go into the README. Tab is already installed. Look, you need to have at least a Pentium 3 to play this CD.
I don't know if we'll be able to do
That
it.
may be what's wrong. Why am I not?
Are you
I'm just
still
wondering
recording?
if it's hidden on here. Show hidden files. Look at there. Content.
EMI, CO2.
Where? There we go. All right, I need to copy these off of there onto my folder again. Why am I getting no sound?
Oh,
There's something.
Coming out of my headphones.
Interference can sometimes solve.
There we go. Now you get the pure joy of the videos and cables and things.
Testing for EMI, electromagnetic interference, can sometimes solve intermittent computer problems where you find some electronic device producing EMI that's interfering with your electronic computer equipment.
That's a
A
little
quick and simple way to test for EMI is to use an inexpensive radio, AM radio, turned down to a low band off the station. Got the volume low enough, if I get it away from electronic equipment, there's no sound at all. Bring it close to electronic equipment, I begin to hear a little interference. Down the side of this computer where the case is on it, there's not much. But notice the difference when I go down the side where the case side cover is removed. I can hear some interference around all of these wires. If you have several computers running side by side with case covers off, sometimes that itself can cause intermittent errors. Monitors can be producers of EMI. I hear some interference around here and around this area here. So it's not good to set a expansion card on top of a monitor for that reason. Sometimes electronic fans can be really bad with producing EMI. This one is a high-end, high-quality fan with good shielding, and it has almost none, which is good for an electric fan. Look for inexpensive electric fans around your equipment as potential problems.
I feel like the electric fan company was very, very happy for some
I am going to copy this whole thing into that other folder so the next time I go looking for them.
that was not from 2005.
So the next time I go looking for them, sheesh, don't. I'm close.
They had flat screen monitors in 2005.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. They weren't made until 2007.
Sure did.
Alright, school, class folders, hardware bids. I'm going to move them all right there. And they'll be in the right place. And they'll be named. Okay. So continuing on, that's what EMI is. Now, why does that matter to us is the question. We frequently would hang cabling up to like a projector, and they're going over top of sometimes really bad EMI devices, like the ballast of the lights. And sometimes we'll have computers that act weird because the data cable is a poor unshielded data cable running on top of a high EMI device. We have had where the projection from an LCD projector is terrible, and all we had to do is move the cable, and all of a sudden it's fine. Because something up in the ceiling is interfering with the signal that's coming through the cable, and so that all of a sudden you get a really fuzzy picture, and it wasn't the cable, it wasn't the projector, it was where the cable was running up in the ceiling. So it's just something to think about and something to know about, okay? So that's EMI. So our next little objective is to understand the power problems that affect PCs and how we can protect the PCs from them, okay? So this continues on with power in general. So we've got basically a couple different power problems that we can have. And those three power problems are called brownouts, spikes, and blackouts, okay? So in general terms, a brownout is when power, that voltage lowers but does not go to zero, okay? So if this is our AC, well, I'll use DC as an example since it's easier to draw. If this is our DC voltage and it's, we'll say it's 110, and then all of a sudden it drops to 100, and then later comes back up, that is a brownout, okay? There's no specific amount of voltage that describes a brownout. It's just a decrease in voltage, okay? So if it was a sine wave, it would look, and my drawing is going to be bad, like if we had a sine wave and all of a sudden the sine wave shifted to a lower voltage, it's still AC power, but the AC power has shifted to a lower voltage. That's a brownout, okay? Now we have brownouts all the time. When you see the lights flicker or go dim and come back at your house, when you see that happen at school, and it's most prevalent on fluorescent lights, because fluorescent lights don't dim, okay? Fluorescent lights have some voltage that they need to power the ballast, and if it doesn't have that voltage, they go out. Whereas a regular incandescent light bulb, if you put less power through it, it's just a little dimmer, it doesn't go out. So a lot of times we don't notice it at our house as much as maybe we notice it here because we have fluorescent lights. And we used to have them all the time here at National Trail. When I first got here, we'd have brownouts all the time, and if the power from a brownout draw goes too low, but the power's still on, there's not enough power going into your computer, and your computer will shut down, okay, depending on what it needs. So a brownout is a temporary reduction. Okay, it's a lowering of voltage for some temporary period of time. Okay, a surge or a spike is the opposite. It's a temporary increase in power. Most noticed during an electrical storm because the increase is a lot. Okay, so a surge or spike is when we're going along and it goes up some amount, could be for a while and then comes back down. Surges or spikes are the biggest reason that electrical components fail. Okay, they're the biggest reason that electrical components fail because they can't handle the additional surge in electricity. Depending on how big that surge is, it can ruin the electrical components. Okay, and the last power condition that we could have is the complete loss of electrical power. Okay, for some period of time. So when all the lights go in your house, you went and you got the candles and you lit them until the power came back on. So when we had the windstorm a few years ago and no power in my house for a week, and we were cooking on the barbecue grill all week long and buying ice and throwing ice in the cooler to try to keep it cool. And Mr. Poole bought a generator after that because I'm not losing all the meat in my freezer again. So I don't care if the TV runs, but I'm not losing the freezer again. So three power conditions we need to know about. Brownouts, temporary reduction. Spikes or surges, temporary increase. And blackouts, total loss of electrical power. And we have different things that we can use to help with those conditions. Things that we can buy for our home or for at school. Okay. The first one is, well, this is the whole list. I think I go through it separately later. There we go. So this is the list of them, and we're going to talk about each one of these, so you don't have to write down the list. We'll go through each one. Okay. The first one is called a surge suppressor. And it is it is the least expensive thing to buy for your house, and it's the least understood of the devices, okay? Is this a surge suppressor or a power strip? You can't tell from there, okay? You can't tell. They look exactly the same. A surge suppressor and a power strip. A power strip does nothing. We're not going to talk about power strips. They don't do anything but give you a number of plugs for one plug. That's all a power strip does. It doesn't protect anything. Okay? And if you have electronic devices at your house that cost more than $100 plugged into a power strip so you can have things plugged in, you're making an egregious mistake. Okay? Surge suppressors, which this one is, okay, because most surge suppressors have lights on them when power strips do not, okay, and it says warning and surge, meaning is this protecting from a surge or not, okay? And there are better ones. Do we have one of the big ones? One of the real nice ones? I don't know where to show the better ones. That real nice long one here, you know what I'm talking about? Right there. Okay. So this one even has more lights. Okay. This one says grounded when lit, on, and protected when lit. Okay. So if I have this one plugged in, and I'm using this one at my house, okay, I should see all of those lights come on. And it gives me a nice warm fuzzy that it's doing the right thing. Okay. Now, all these are rated for some amount of a surge, and whether or not it's written on the actual device, sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. This one is not. Yeah, this was actually kind of crummy. Okay. Suppressed voltage rating 330 volts. Okay, so this is a very low-end surge suppressor. Okay, very low end. Okay, surge suppressor is probably a row of outlets and an on-off switch that protects from over voltages of AC power lines and telephone lines. Okay, and that's all this one's doing. This one and probably this one too are really just doing a good job of protecting you from bad power on your power line. When my wife used to have a shop downtown in Eaton, we went through 3 plug-in portable phones before we realized that it was the power in that building that was burning up all of the power supplies. And as soon as we put one of those on her phone, it lasted, I think, 3 years before the store closed. Okay? Because what was happening is the power was so crappy in that building. It wasn't so crappy that you would know from your lights, but it was doing this all the time. It was just going up a little bit all the time. And it burned out that plug-in power supply. This plug-in adapter, where I don't know where that one went that was over here, the little adapter just burned out over time. Okay, because these aren't made to take an extra 20 or 30 volts over and over again. Just like these aren't made, which is why these are the biggest thing that burn out in your house, because you get these surges in power, and the difference between a surge and a spike is the gravity of it. Okay, so this is a surge and this is a spike. Kind of think about that. Same thing. Okay, but when we talk about power surges, we're talking about smaller increases in electrical current, whereas we're talking about spikes. We're talking about, you know, your house got hit by electricity, or down the road the power pole got hit by electricity and a major increase. Okay, so we've got low-end ones like that one, which are going to do a good job in protecting you against just bad power down the road. But then we also have some kind of amount that it protects to. And like I said, that one said it was 330. There are ones that you can go that protect from 25,000 volts. Okay. In other words, the lightning could almost strike the other end of this cable, and your computer would theoretically still be fine. Okay. So what it does is it sends anything above that, it detects it and sends it to ground. So instead of, if something came in through the power line and it detected it, it sends it straight to ground. instead of coming out through your electrical component. Okay? Now what if there's no ground? It doesn't do squat. Which is why the light here says grounded when lit. If I took off the ground, that would go out and that would go out because it's not protected anymore. Okay? So that's why when I talked about the ground plug before, I said that's really, really important. Because if it's not grounded, it doesn't do anything. This is just a nice power strip that costs you a lot of money. Okay? So they shut to absorb the surge, it goes to ground, and they have some kind of clamping voltage, or the amount that it can absorb before it's burnt out too. And so that clamping voltage is usually on the box. And if I were to go and I wanted to go buy one, they're not overly expensive. I'm going to go ahead and go to I'll go to Amazon. And did I spell that right? Close enough for Amazon to find it. There we go. Let's see if we can find a nice one. Let's look at this one. $19 for this Belkin one.
Said 500 volts.
I saw that. That's low too. But here's the big thing. It's a $300,000 warranty. And that's what I would always suggest you guys doing if you're going out and you've got a nice computer at home, a nice stereo, buy something that has a good warranty on it. Because for $19, now everything that's plugged into that is protected. So that if you have an electrical storm, they will pay to replace that device. There's a caveat there. Don't throw away the box. Don't throw away the receipt. Put the receipt in the box and put it someplace that you'll remember where it is. Okay? Because in every case, somebody said, hey, I bought that, but they don't know when you bought it. They don't know that you bought it. You don't have the box. They'd like to not honor that receipt. Now, I will tell you that Mrs. Eels, when she used to work here, listened to me and got one of those and had an electrical storm, and it blew up her computer, and they paid for a brand new computer. She got a brand new computer from the company. Okay? Which is nice, right? So I would look, and if we look at other ones, I'm sure we can even see higher and better clamping voltages. The big thing to me is that warranty, though, quite honestly. That one doesn't even say it. Let's say it down here. Doesn't say it down here. Let's see what this strip light one says. 25-foot cord, holy moly. $75,000 warranty, and I'll be honest, I'm paying more attention to that than anything else. Because I'm getting it to really make sure I don't lose my device. But I don't see how many joules it suppresses.
All of them just tell you what you want.
Yeah. So I guess that's the number that we're looking for. Obviously, the higher the better. That is a long cord. Holy moly, 25 feet. How do we even that long? Okay. So normally they used to say clamping voltages. Maybe they just say joules now. But I'm looking for one with the best warranty. The big thing is the ground. I will tell you that I had a really nice surge suppressor on my stereo at my house. 3-volt, 3-prong plug have plugged in, and lost my nice new amp and my CD player. And I'm like, how can that happen? I just bought a new suppressor because the guy who owned the house before me put a nice 3-prong outlet there where the stereo went, and it was not wired. So I had 2 wires going to it, and my surge suppressor didn't work. It wasn't one that had a light like this that said grounded. Okay, so I didn't know it wasn't grounded, and it bummed me out. So make sure you got a good ground. Okay, power conditioners are not something you normally buy. Power conditioners are something in businesses and buildings that are installed in the building. You could have a power conditioner installed in a nice new home if you had a new home built. Unlikely, okay? Now, surge suppressors only protect against spikes. That's all they protect against, surges and spikes, okay? Power conditioners protect against brownouts and spikes. Okay, so when I have a matching on this, and I say which thing protects against which, power conditioners match up with brownouts. Yes, they also do spikes. Surge suppressors only do spikes. Okay, so power conditioners protect against spikes, but also against brownouts. They regulate or condition the power so that it provides that building with a more stable electrical current. Okay, it does not have the capacity to protect against a blackout. It's just for temporary voltage reductions. It has a circuitry that's built in there to give you nice stable power. Okay, and it's generally a big, huge piece of equipment that goes into a whole room to power condition a building. Okay, it's not like something you just buy and plug into the wall. Okay, so that's a power conditioner. The last thing that we have is the uninterruptible power supply, or an UPS, UPS, okay? And I'm never going to call it anything other than an UPS. Just want to make sure I was recording for Lane, okay? So an UPS protects against everything, okay? An UPS provides backup power when alternating current fails. It filters the AC power because it's going through a battery, okay? It conditions for brownouts and spikes. It's the best of everything. Okay, a UPS has one or more batteries in it, so it's not forever. Okay, it provides protection for blackouts for a limited amount of time, and that limited amount of time depends on what you have plugged into it. In every single one of our closets, we have multiple UPS that our servers and our switches are plugged into, so if the power goes out for 2 to 5 minutes, we're fine. If the power goes out for 2 to 5 hours, we are not. At some point, the battery fails and everything shuts off completely. Okay, but the power is going through and being conditioned by the circuitry in that UPS, and going through that battery. The batteries are being charged all the time, and if all the power goes out the building, whatever's plugged into an UPS will last as long as that battery lasts. In the case of my computer over there, I've got UPSs on my computers. We're talking 5 to 10 minutes. That I'll be able to continue to work. In the case of the switches, because there's almost no moving parts, we're really talking about closer to an hour. That our network will continue to run. The Wi-Fi a little less because it's pushing power through those switches too. I imagine that those will die faster. We haven't had a test for that. So UPSs can be stand-up kinds, they can be lay-down kinds, you can have them beside your computer, you can have them in a closet. There's a variety of different manufacturers of UPS. Actually, I'm going to go back here and we're going to go over to Amazon again, and I'm going to look up prices of UPSs. Now we looked, this is an expensive one, right at $30. Most of them are $30 or less for surge suppressors, so they're easy. In fact, if we just looked at them based on price, you could find a surge suppressor for a very low cost for I'm gonna ignore that penny one there. And that one's a little low. Let's see. Let's see the lowest price real one that we can plug in. These aren't even surge suppressors. I'm not sure why they show up on our list. Let's put price in here and say starting at $5 to filter out all that junk there. So I can get a Belkin one plug surge protector. I'm not going to count that one either. Is this a real one? 3 outlet wall tap protector adapter. So not that expensive. If you're just plugging in one of those, I would get something a little better than that. But when it comes to UPSs, they're more expensive. Let's see if there's a category just for UPSs. No, I'm going to go all department. UPS. And when I start looking at UPSs are more expensive, okay? Because there's more circuitry in them, there are batteries in them. In most cases at your home, you don't need an UPS, okay? A surge suppressor is fine, but if you're working out of your house, if you've got stuff that you just can't afford to lose if the power goes out, then you might want to invest in an UPS. Servers are on UPSs, and that's about it. and the network that we have. Okay, and you've got little plug-in ones that you can get, like this one that just plugs in. The batteries are very small on these, and so if you get a small one because it fits nicely underneath a table like the one that's under Cindy's desk, you're going to have 2 to 5 minutes of that laptop or that computer working at most. And in some cases, the batteries are so small inside of them, they don't even do anything more than a surge suppressor anyway, because you've got too much plugged into them. If you've got this one that has very low wattage inside it, you know, it's a 340 watt ups, and she's maybe got a 500 watt power supply, so it's pulling more than this can put out for 1 second. So it's just going to turn off anyway. So you have to make sure when you buy an ups, it's also capable of supplying the amount of power that you need. And so you have to look at the wattage. And so there's the wattage, like this one would do a normal PC. It's got enough wattage. And then the other number you look at is the volt amps, which is how much power the battery holds. The higher volt amp means the battery is bigger and it holds more power into it. So this one that says 600 watt, 1000 volt amps is not going to last as long as this one. It's 1500 volt amp. This one's going to last 33% longer. Therefore, it's more expensive too, okay? So those are the numbers that we look at. We look at the wattage to make sure it can run whatever is plugged into it, and then we look at the volt amps to see how long it will run what's plugged into it, okay? So the higher volt amp rating equates to higher cost. You can see this little plug-in one only have 750 volt amps, and I don't even know what the wattage is on that one. Let's see if it even says. See. And I've had that up. There we go, 450 watts. So it might run your PC. Might. Okay, if you were sitting there gaming with really good video cards and you had an 800 watt power supply and you were really stressing out, it might run it for a minute or two. Saying typical backup time, 11 minutes. You've got enough time to shut down your computer. It's really what you're trying to get out of an UPS. Trying to get the ability to save your files and then shut down your PC normally. Okay. Now there are what are called smart UPSes, which almost all of them are anymore, and that means you put software on your PC and you plug it into your PC, and it tells your PC how much time it has left. And your PC goes, "I'm shutting down!" So it gets an orderly shutdown as opposed to just the power being removed from it. So if you have a smart UPS, you've got it plugged into your PC, and it will tell you how much time is left, and it will shut it down for you. I've got to remember to turn off my data when I come in. It was dead yesterday when I left here. Okay, so that's the difference between a smart and a dumb UPS, is that it plugs into your computer and it comes with software to tell your computer how long until it has to be shut down. Smart UPS software, you can say automatically shut it down when there's 2 minutes left, 5 minutes left, 10 minutes. You can tell it in the software how long. You can tell it not to shut it down at all, but just to make an alarm sound so that you know that it's almost dead. So if you're going to be at work, you don't want to shut down automatically, but you want to know, you can have it do that too, depending on the software. Okay, so that's what a smart UPS does for you. When you're buying an UPS, and like I said, I don't know that many people need to have one at home. You need to look at the cost, obviously. You need to look at the battery charging operation. In other words, is it a 110 or a 220 plug? Because we have one in the school that had to have 220 put in. Look at what your volt amp rating is and your wattage. It says or, but that's not true because those are two totally different things. That volt amp rating says how long. The wattage says how much can I have plugged into it. Okay. They all have some degree of line conditioning, in other words, protection against brownouts. And then obviously what kind of warranty and service, how long do they guarantee it to last for? Because the batteries will go bad. The batteries will last X amount of time. If it has a 1-year warranty, I would try to stay away from it because those batteries aren't cheap. And if they're saying it's only going to be good for a year, and you have to buy all new batteries in a year, and you have to pay 20 more bucks to get one that says it's good for 3 years, you may want to do that. Okay, because that's about how long. When you say that we have to replace the batteries, probably about every 3 years. Okay. Good. Okay. this is just a list of different apps manufacturers. There's tons out there, okay, that we buy from. And honestly, most of ours, I think, are trip lights. I think that's what most of ours
I
are.
like APCs, but they're expensive.
Yeah, APC is the other company and that's the biggest company that makes them, but they are the most expensive one of the manufacturers out there. So they have really nice ones. Trip
There's
light.
some cyber powers too, whatever.
We do. I don't think that's on
Red
here.
cells.
Yeah. So we have different ones. We could go take a walk, and I could point them out to you if we get through with this, and we are. That was the last one. Yay! Okay. So next class we'll go do a little walk, and I'll show you some of the different apps we have in the school. Next class we're going to go over calculating wattages. Okay. So in other words, going through learning how, this is the thing that students seem to have the most problem with. That's why we're going to do one class of just doing it. How do I look at a PC and say, this is the size of power supply that I need? Which is really the biggest thing to take away from this whole chapter. The part that we're talking about is the power supply, and how do I determine which one is the power supply for me? So we're going to just do a walk, and we'll walk through and look at some of the different options that we have, and we're going to do the calculating wattages tomorrow. Really don't want to have Lane miss that anyway, so it's better that we stop right here.